What's your favorite food? A flood of options might race through your mind, from a slice of gooey cheese-laden pizza to a steaming bowl of beef pho. But deep inside Manila's harshest slum, the go-to dish is something else entirely. Today, follow us into a world where the acrid scent of burnt oil blends with charcoal smoke and the cries of hungry children. And discover how a single discarded bone can become a last flicker of hope. Number 1. The harshest slum in the Philippines. Welcome to Tondo, the crowded and struggling heart of Manila. This is not a place of skyscrapers or shopping malls. Instead, it's a maze of rusted rooftops and narrow alleys where homes made of scrap wood and metal press against one another. More than 600,000 people live in this small corner of the city, packed into fewer than 10 square kilometers. The space is tight, the air is thick, and every inch of land is a fight for survival. Most families in Tondo live on less than $2 United States a day. That amount is barely enough to buy a small meal, let alone support a household. There are no stable jobs for most residents. People rely on what they can find, selling street snacks, collecting plastic bottles, hauling goods by hand. Even clean water is not always available. Over 70% of homes do not have steady access to water and must buy it from vendors at high prices. In some cases, water costs more than a full plate of rice. Viewed from above by a drone, Tondo appears as a sea of rust-colored rooftops stretching toward the horizon. Winding paths cut through clusters of homes with black water canals running through them. Not far from these streets stands Smoky Mountain, a massive landfill that once operated for more than 30 years. Although it officially closed in the year 2019, the area remains active. Many families still search through the trash each day, collecting wires, scrap metal, or anything they can sell. Children as young as 6 years old climb the old mounds of waste, hoping to find something. Maybe even leftovers that can be cleaned and eaten. Despite the smoke, the smell, and the weight of poverty, one thing stands out: the strength of the people. In Tondo, life is hard, but the human spirit remains strong. Hunger may be present, but so is hope. Number 2. Food waste. Life cycle. Have you ever wondered where the leftover food you throw away actually ends up? A landfill, perhaps, or maybe as feed for pigs. That's not entirely wrong, but in the city of Manila, especially in the poorest neighborhoods, the journey of discarded food takes a very different turn. It doesn't just vanish into a dump. Instead, it enters a second life, one that powers a hidden economy and helps entire families survive. Late at night, behind the closed doors of fast food chains and restaurants like MC Donald's, Jollibee, KFC, dozens of garbage bags are filled with half-eaten fried chicken, leftover rice, soggy fries, and spoiled bread. These bags are loaded onto collection trucks that snake through the city, heading toward temporary waste stations on the edges of slum communities. And that is where another side of the city begins to wake up. Waiting for those trucks are dozens of waste pickers, many of them families who know the schedule by heart. As the garbage is unloaded, there are no gloves, no safety gear, just bare hands, sharp eyes, and an urgent sense of purpose. Plastic bottles and wrappers are sorted and sold. Scrap metal is pulled out for recycling, and the most sought-after items are pieces of food that look even remotely edible. These leftovers, often still in wrappers or containers, are taken, cleaned, boiled, and sometimes cooked again. From there, the food travels once more past from the collector to the cleaner, then to someone who prepares it for sale as Pagpag, a cheap but vital meal. Each link in this chain earns only a few pesos, but for many, it is the difference between hunger and survival. So now prepare yourself to discover a dish that may seem disgusting to outsiders, but remains deeply valuable to the people of Tondo. Number 3. Origin of the name Pagpag. The name Pagpag might sound unusual at first, but its meaning carries a quiet depth rooted in both language and lived experience. In Tagalog, Pagpag means to shake off dust. On the surface, it refers to the act of brushing off dirt from discarded food, chicken bones, rice, or bread pulled from garbage bags. But for the people of Tondo, it means much more. It speaks to the daily effort of shaking off despair, of rising above hunger, and of reclaiming dignity from a world that seems to have forgotten them. The history of Pagpag stretches back to the late 1970s, a period of economic instability in the Philippines. At that time, a sudden spike in rice prices devastated poor communities. For families already living hand-to-mouth, even a simple meal became difficult to afford. Food insecurity swept through urban slums like Tondo, where jobs were scarce and options were few. Faced with growing hunger, residents began to search for alternative sources of nourishment. And that's when Pagpag first emerged. People started collecting leftover fast food discarded by restaurants and street vendors. Fried chicken that had been thrown out, rice left uneaten, bits of burger patties. All of it was cleaned, boiled, seasoned, and transformed into new meals. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't ideal, but it filled stomachs, especially those of children, and helped entire households stretch one more day. Over the decades, Pagpag evolved from a desperate improvisation into a quiet cultural ritual among the poor. It became a symbol of resourcefulness, of endurance, and of how Filipino communities adapt in the face of hardship. In many homes, Pagpag is not talked about proudly, but it is remembered respectfully, as a sign of resilience, a part of their history, and sometimes the only reason they got through the toughest times. Today, while the world may view Pagpag with shock or pity in the back streets of Manila, it still means survival. It is a dish born from poverty, but held together by strength, solidarity, and an unshakable will to keep going, no matter what's left on the table. Number 4. Process from trash to dinner. Every food has its own cooking ritual, and Pagpag is no exception. Long before dawn, rickety pushcarts stop at the back doors of fried chicken chains where 10-kilogram sacks of leftovers trade hands for between 50 and 100 pesos, sealed with a wordless nod. The quicker those sacks reach the cramped rooms of Tondo, the better the chance of keeping their pungent cargo from turning foul in the rising heat. Down a dim alley, the plastic bags are sliced open, spilling out clumps of rice, leathery chicken skin, limp fries, and the occasional burger still wrapped in paper. No gloves, no running water. Just a cracked basin brimming with brine or a weak detergent mix. Bones with scraps of meat are kneaded and soaked again and again until the greasy scum lifts and the trash can stench fades. The entire wash must finish within 12 hours of disposal. Any slower, and bacteria claim the lot. Once drained beneath a warped tin roof, the pieces are dusted with salt, pepper, and a pinch of instant noodle seasoning, then brightened with a few drops of sharp calamansi. An old aluminum pan, dented on every side, sits over a charcoal stove. Reused cooking oil, dark as strong coffee, fills the pan and trembles as it heats. When the surface ripples, the revived scraps slide in, sending up a froth of sizzling bubbles. Moments later, they emerge bronze brown and savory, the aroma drifting through the lane and inviting neighbors to jingle their coins. A plate of rice and Pagpag costs 10 or 20 pesos cheaper than any freshly cooked meal in the city, and filling enough to push hunger aside for a few hours. Through the haze of oil smoke, you notice a thin woman. her skin darkened by years of fire and soot lowering her spatula as if setting down a burden. She squints, offers a faint smile at your uneasy stare, and speaks with quiet resolve. Most people see this heap and feel sick, but for us, it is dinner. Parasites or germs. Better than starving. My boy clutched his stomach all night the first time he ate Pagpag. Now he is used to it. In that brief confession, you understand that every step from scavenging and scrubbing to seasoning and frying exists for a single purpose: to keep children's stomachs from growling and give the adults enough strength to greet the next sunrise. Given such a process, claiming that Pagpag poses no health risks simply because people have grown accustomed to it is a grave mistake. In the next section, we will uncover the hidden dangers lurking inside this well-known dish of Tondo. Number 5. Health risks. Long-term reliance on Pagpag carries clear and measurable health risks that already strain Manila's frontline medical services. Refried scraps sit for hours in humid air, pass through several bare hand stages, and are rinsed in brackish water. Every step creates perfect conditions for Salmonella Shigella and other foodborne microbes. A joint PIDS and UNICEF report released in January 2025 confirms that diarrhea remains among the top causes of illness and hospital admission nationwide, with poor hygiene linked to 86% of diarrhea deaths and 35% of victims being children under 5 years. UNICEF's most recent field update notes that roughly 1 in 4 Filipino children, about 26%, are stunted as repeated infections and low-quality diets strip the body of protein, iron, and zinc. Pagpag, usually reheated skin and cartilage, offers almost none of those nutrients. Eaten day after day, it locks families into a loop of poor growth, weak immunity, and yet more gastrointestinal bouts. A 2-year survey of chicken sold in Metro Manila wet markets, published early in 2025, found that 74% of salmonella samples were drug-resistant, and 45% were resistant to multiple antibiotics. Pagpag can carry those hardy strains straight into already vulnerable intestines, rendering first-line medicines ineffective. Families often buy only partial blister packs from sidewalk kiosks, rarely finish a full course, and unwittingly speed up bacterial adaptation. The burden shows up every dawn outside the sole charity clinic serving several Tondo blocks. Queues bend around corrugated fences even before the doors open, while inside the pharmacy shelf lists 0 beside amoxicillin cotrimoxazole and oral rehydration salts. Talks usually vanish by mid-week. National sanitation data reveal that by 2025, only 33% of barangays had ended open defecation, far below the government's target of 80%, leaving streets and canals awash in pathogens. These figures combine into a public health equation that cannot be ignored. Dirty sourcing plus nutrient-poor content plus uncontrolled antibiotic use equals surging diarrhea, stalled growth, and resistance curves that climb each year. Claiming Pagpag is harmless simply because communities have learned to stomach it misreads both biology and statistics. Number 6. Social stigma. Social stigma clings to Pagpag almost as stubbornly as the reused oil that coats each recycled chicken bone, shaping outsiders' reactions and residents' self-perception in equal measure. When tourist coaches skirt the edge of Tondo air conditioning turned up high, a guide lowers their voice, calls the neighborhood colorful but challenging, and several passengers raise phones for a furtive photo while fingers drift toward pinched nostrils. For scrap collectors pushing carts beside the road, that quick squeeze of a stranger's nose whispers an unspoken verdict: unclean, undeserving, other. School children who travel across town on public jeeps each child hoping the aroma of reheated pagpag in a lunchbox will stay hidden until the bell rings. Some choose to skip meals altogether rather than invite a chorus of mock gags from classmates. Adults sense the hierarchy just as acutely. Before a job interview, many layer extra perfume and scrub fingernails raw anxious that the faintest trace of reused grease might betray their address. A barista from Tondo recently told local researchers that the greatest relief of earning a steady wage was smelling like soap instead of smoke. Community surveys conducted by the University of the Philippines in late 2024 add data to the anecdotes. More than 2/3 of Metro Manila respondents admitted they would prefer not to live next door to families known to subsist on recycled food. And nearly 1/2 said they would avoid dining with someone who openly eats pagpag. A meal that keeps families alive is simultaneously proof in the eyes of wider society that those families have fallen too far. Calling pagpag a mere curiosity overlooks the emotional toll that comes with every bite. The food fills stomachs, but the prejudice it attracts seeps deeper, shaping identities and reinforcing the border's economic, geographic, psychological, that separate Tondo from the city surrounding it. Number 7. Tondo. Culture. Culture in Tondo unfolds as a vivid balancing act that blends centuries-old devotion, modern street art, and relentless improvisation, with the recycled dish called pagpag woven through each layer like an indestructible thread. Each third Sunday of January brings the feast of Santo Niño, when drums and brass bands lead crowds carrying child-size icons along cramped alleys, paying homage to a statue revered since the 16th century and second in age only to the one in Cebu. During the week surrounding that celebration, improvised stalls bloom beside the parish church, offering halo-halo adobo and large pans of what vendors coyly label second-hand chicken, a softer name for pagpag that residents accept without embarrassment because the practice funds school fees and keeps entire blocks fed. A Philippine Daily Inquirer business feature from 2017 documented how processing and selling leftover fast food meat had grown into a cottage economy worth several million pesos each year, demonstrating that ingenuity can flourish even in the city's economic shadows. Within the neighborhood, that external disdain breeds its own rituals of resistance. Teenagers paint towering walls with bold Tagalog questions that ask who throws the food, who eats it, and who truly deserves shame. While volunteer choirs that once rehearsed atop the retired Smoky Mountain landfill now sing during barangay fiestas about rising above refuse and forging dignity from scraps. Evening basketball games unfold beneath sagging electrical lines, and charcoal stoves ignite nearby. Where families season salvaged meat with calamansi and salt proving through every sizzling skillet that determination and community flavor can coexist with hardship. Observers who focus solely on poverty miss the cultural alchemy taking place in cramped kitchens, where gospel songs drift through corrugated walls and laughter punctuates the scraping of pans, converting discarded protein into both sustenance and shared identity. Pagpag may provoke revulsion among visitors, although for residents, it remains proof that adversity can be cooked down and served with pride. Number 8. Potential solution. Each year, the world quietly sends 1/3 of all food produced, worth nearly $3 trillion, into landfills, where it rots into sour methane. When a cooled chicken drumstick slides off a dinner plate in New York and lands in a bin, its life cycle remains open. 13,000 kilometers away, a family in Tondo retrieves the same kind of bone, rinses it in brine, and drops it into hot oil to make pagpag. High-income nations own the cold chain technology and sophisticated logistics that keep strawberries fresh across oceans. But those same countries generate the largest share of edible waste. Responsibility cannot end with a few containers of rice shipped abroad. It must include sharing refrigeration know-how, lowering transport tariffs on near-expiry goods, and funding green microcredits so wet markets in places like Tondo can install solar-powered freezers. Extending safe storage by even 24 hours can slash the incentive to eat from trash on an exponential curve. Infrastructure upgrades take years, but immediate action lies within reach. Cross-border food banks paired with mobile apps similar to Too Good To Go can rescue surplus meals moments before they enter the waste stream trim. Carbon emissions embedded in every tossed salad and lighten the medical load created by foodborne disease. Each salvaged plate removes pressure from overcrowded clinics while granting a modicum of dignity to families who now rely on Pagpag. Eliminating that final desperate recipe requires every link in the global chain. From luxury buffets to alleyway stoves, to accept stewardship for each grain of rice that slips through their fingers. Only when surplus is treated as shared capital rather than personal clutter will Pagpag retreat from Manila's menus and leave room for food that nourishes without apology. Number 9. Closing message. Every roll pushed aside on your plate, every serving of fries left to cool and then forgotten could be the only dinner a household in Tondo will see that day. What you treat as surplus is the last hope of silencing the hunger pains of a child who has grown used to the sound of an empty stomach. Fighting this imbalance does not require grand gestures. It begins with the simplest choices. Order only what you will finish, store leftovers safely, and pass along untouched portions through food rescue apps or your local food bank. High-income nations command vast cold chain networks, sophisticated distribution systems, and purchasing power that encourages over-ordering. When one small act of thrift is multiplied by millions of consumers, tons of edible nutrients stay on the table. Methane emissions from landfills fall, and most importantly, the chance of healthier lives rises for communities half a world away. If you are able to do more, consider supporting the groups that already feed and educate children in Tondo. Organizations such as Harshest Manila Rise Against Hunger and UNICEF-backed scholarship programs turn donations into daily meals, classroom supplies, and vaccination drives. A gift no larger than the price of one weekly coffee can buy a protein-rich food pack, an iron tablet that prevents anemia, or a textbook that broadens a young mind. Reducing waste is therefore more than an environmental calculation. It is a promise of fairness, a recognition that food is produced to nourish everyone, rather than to swell garbage heaps. By valuing every crumb on our plates, we close the distance between abundance and need, transforming what once seemed insignificant into an act of solidarity that travels from your kitchen to the narrow alleyways of Tondo. Pagpag may be a disturbing dish to many because of where it comes from, because of how it's made. But it also reveals the lengths to which people will go when systems fail to feed them. It's easy to flinch at Pagpag, to dismiss it as unsanitary or sad. Why some communities must recycle scraps while others throw away abundance. These questions are not just about poverty, they're about justice, responsibility, and the choices we make every day as consumers, voters, and global citizens. Real change begins when awareness turns into action. Because no one should have to choose between hunger and bacteria just to survive. If this story moved you, and you believe in documentaries that spark reflection and change, please subscribe and like NVL Travel Documentary.